Hello, this is Jyothsna, working as an assistant professor in BVRIT. I'm working for IT department. Today we are going to explain about database management system concept, which is very important for database management, that is ACID properties, which is useful for the transaction management. So what is meant by transaction? Transaction is a unit of program execution. That means what? Any transaction, if you go to any bank, so if you do any transaction, that means crediting some amount to the bank or debiting some amount from the bank, that is a transaction. So when you are doing any transaction, in any bank, how many number of transaction will be executed inside the database? That we are going to see how the database will be maintaining the consistency. So what are the properties that is required to maintain the database consistency, that we are going to discuss in today's session. So first, what does transaction means? Every transaction is a unit of execution. So transaction can be written with two operations. One is read operation and another one is write operation. So what is my read operation means? Read operation means it will only take the data for the data item, reading the data. So with the reading of data, you are not allowed to do any modification to that data. Next, one more operation is write operation. Write operation means, so you are allowed to read the content, that means to retrieve the content, as well as you are allowed to modify the content. Suppose read of X means you are only allowed to read the data item. What is the value of data item X? You are allowed to see. Whereas write of X means you are allowed to read the data value of X and at the same time you are allowed to modify the data value of X. That is the difference between read operation and write operation. Okay, if you want to write any transaction, you have to write the transaction with the help of these two operations, read operation and write operation. So after writing the transaction, you have to continue with the execution. Okay, so this is the example for the transaction management. Here this is the example for transaction of 50 rupees from account A to account B. See here, the first transaction is read of A. Means what? So it will take the whatever the value of A is there in the database, that it will take that value. Suppose we have the 500 rupees in account A. That means A value is 500. Okay, next transaction is A is equal to A minus 50. That means what? We are deducting 50 rupees from account A. Okay, next write of A. That means after deducting the amount from account A, we are deducting the value. That means now the account A consists of 450 rupees in his account. Right. Next, read of B. Read of B means what? So you are reading the value of B from the database. Suppose for example, in B, we are having 1000 rupees in his account. Right. So from B account, what we are doing? We are adding 50 rupees to the B account. Now the B account will consist of 1050. That means what? We are transferring 50 rupees from account A to account B. Right? So for that, what is the first transaction you have to do is, you have to deduct the 50 rupees from account A. Then that amount should be added to the account B. This is one complete transaction. Right? So to execute this transaction, the transaction has to maintain the consistency after the completion of the execution of the transaction. Right? To maintain the database consistency, we need to follow 4 properties of the database transaction. So first one is, these are called the ACID properties. These are called ACID properties. A stands for atomicity, C stands for consistency, I stands for isolation, D stands for durability. So now I will explain you all 4 these terms, which are very useful for maintaining the consistency of the database. So first we will see about with the example of this one, we will explain what is each properties. We are taking the same example of transferring 50 rupees from account A to account B. So for that we have written this transaction again. Right. Next, first we will see what is atomicity. Atomicity means when you are starting any transaction, you have to complete the transaction. Otherwise, don't start the transaction. If the transaction start, that has to be completed. That means it should not stop in the middle due to any other reason. The execution of a transaction should not stop in the middle. That is nothing but the atomicity transaction. So with the example, we will see that. See in this example of fund transfer, read of A is equal to A minus 50. The first step we are taking is, we are deducting 50 rupees from account A, and the second step is, we are adding that 50 rupees to account B. So imagine, what if there is some internal error due to either hardware or any software or power failure also, because of any reasons. What if the transaction is stopped in the middle due to some failure? That can be any type of failure. Software failure, system failure, power failure. That means what? Suppose assume that if the transaction has failed before the execution of instruction 4, here. So what will happen here? From account A, you have deducted 50 rupees, right? But the amount has not been transferred to the account B. That means what? The amount is not credited in the account B, but it is not there in the account A also. Then what is the status of this 50 rupees? We can't say. That means what? Here we are not able to find out where is the 50 rupees. Where is the 50 rupees? We are not able to find out. This should not happen in the data to maintain the database consistency, because we cannot say what is the status of 50 rupees here, right? To maintain that, the database must possess atomicity property. That means when you start the execution of transaction, it has to be completed, right? Otherwise, don't start the transaction. That is nothing but the atomicity. Next, coming to the durability. What is the general meaning of durability? So we generally say it is durable. That means what? Long lasting. Durable means what? Long lasting. Durability. Here, coming to the database, what is meant by durability means, after the execution of transaction, whatever the changes are made for the particular data item for any account, that has to be persistent. That has to be persistent. Suppose in our example of transferring the amount from account A to account B, after the successful transaction of this transaction of transferring amount from A to B, so what has to be happen? Account A should consist of 450 rupees and account B should consist of 1050 rupees, right? These values are to be persistent after the execution of the transaction. That is nothing but the database consistency durability. This is nothing but the durability. Next, coming to the consistency. So what is meant by consistency? You have to maintain the accuracy of the database. You have to maintain the accuracy of the database. That means during the execution of transaction, the database may be temporarily inconsistent. But when the transaction has completes its execution completely, at the end, the database has to be consistent. At the end, the database has to be consistent. Means what? See, if you take the same example of transferring amount from account A to account B, okay, once after the execution is completed successfully, account A must consist of 450 rupees and account B must consist of 1050 rupees. That is for sure. If it is like that only, then we can say that the database is consistent. When the database will be inconsistent means during the execution of the transaction, in the middle of the execution of the transaction, then we can say that there may be a chance of inconsistency, but at the end, there must be a consistency of the database. That is nothing but the consistency. We have completed 3 properties of acid properties. We have seen atomicity, we have seen consistency, now we have seen durability. Next, one more is left. That is the last property in the acid properties, that is isolation property. What is meant by isolation property? Isolation means, what is the general meaning of isolation? We can say that a person is sitting isolatedly. Means what? That he is sitting alone. He is sitting isolatedly means what? He is sitting alone, right? So here, isolation in the database management is, so though there are executing several transactions, right? For example, if you take any bank, so in the bank, it is not that only you are executing transaction. There are thousands of users are executing and accessing the database at the same time, right? That means what, many people are crediting some data, many people are debiting from the bank, so many transactions are executing from the same database. Though it is happening like that, isolation means you have to execute your transaction as if no other transactions are executing along with me. That means there should be no interference with the transaction. There should not be any interference with other transactions. That means you have to execute the data isolation as if no other transactions are executing. See here in our example, we have T1 transaction and T2 transaction. In the T1 transaction, so we are performing read of A. A is equal to A minus 50, means you are deducting 50 rupees from account A. Next, write off A. So now what is the value of A? A is equal to 450 because initially he was having 500 rupees in his account. So it will become 450 rupees now. Next, we already know the other transactions are, you are crediting the 50 rupees to the account B. He is having 1000 rupees in his account. The amount will be credited to the B account. Right. What is happening between T1 and T2? Again here we are executing the one more transaction, read A, read B, print A plus B. Read A, read B, print A plus B. That means what? This is another execution, another transaction, sorry. This is T1 is one transaction and T2 is another transaction. Right? What is happening here? It is not that after completion of execution of T1, we are executing T2. No. In the middle of execution of transaction T1, we have started the execution of transaction T2. Okay. This is what happened. So, though this is also executing, that means multiple transactions are performing or executing at the same time. The transaction has to be executed as if there is no other transactions are executing. As if there are no other transactions are executing. So that is nothing but the isolation. Thank you everyone. Hope you like this video. Thank you all.
Vishnu Audio Visual Center, like and share and subscribe and click bell icon.